At 56, I never thought my life would fall apart like this. It all started with what seemed like a small car accident, just a slip, a second of bad luck. But then I was in a coma for 3 whole weeks. When I finally woke up, everything felt strange. My body was weak, my thoughts were slow, and the world didn't feel like mine anymore. But the worst part wasn't the pain or the confusion. It was the deep feeling that something important had changed while I was gone. And I was, right, my son Ethan, the one person I thought I could always count on, did something I never saw coming. He betrayed me. Not in a small way. In a way that left me broken and without a home. Have you ever felt that kind of betrayal? The kind that knocks the air out of your lungs. I lay in that hospital bed, alone and scared, waiting for Ethan. But he never came. No visits, no calls, just silence. When I was finally allowed to go home, I thought walking through that front door would feel comforting. I expected to feel the warmth of familiar walls, maybe smell the spices from the kitchen I loved so much. But instead, the house felt cold, like a stranger's place. There was no welcome, no note, nothing. Just a pile of papers sitting on the kitchen table. I picked them up with shaking hands, not prepared for what I was about to see. Sale of property. Those 3 words knocked the wind out of me. I flipped through the pages again and again, hoping I had read them wrong. But there it was. Ethan had sold my house, my home, the place I had worked my whole life to build for both of us gone. Sold without my knowledge, without even asking me. Not a call, not a message, nothing. I felt something snap inside me. I wasn't just sad, I was furious. How could my own son do this to me? I gave up everything for him: late nights, hard jobs, endless sacrifices, and this was how he repaid me, by taking away the one thing that meant everything to me while I was unconscious in a hospital bed. I walked around the house like a ghost. The pictures on the wall, the worn-out sofa, the dent in the kitchen counter where Ethan once spilled juice when he was 5, it all felt so distant, like memories from someone else's life. The weight of what he had done crushed me. My heart pounded in my chest. The papers in my hand felt heavy, like they carried every mistake, every heartbreak, every unspoken word. This wasn't just a house, it was my safe place, my reward for years of hard work. And now, it was gone, just like that. Signed away by the person I loved the most. And the worst part, I don't think he even saw me anymore. Not the mother who stayed up all night when he was sick. Not the woman who skipped meals to make sure he had enough. He saw someone he could push aside. And in that moment, standing in the silence of what used to be my home, I realized I wasn't just hurt. I was invisible. I couldn't catch my breath. My chest felt tight, like I was being squeezed from the inside. But I refused to cry, not for him. He had already taken too much from me. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking as I scrolled through my contacts. There he was, Ethan, his name right at the top, like he still belonged there. I stared at it, feeling the weight of every message he'd ignored, every call he never returned. How did I not see this coming? How was I so trusting? I tapped his name and put the phone to my ear. Each ring felt like a slap, loud and cold in the empty house. When he finally picked up, his voice was light, like nothing was wrong. "Mom, hey, how's everything? Are you home now?" "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I'm home. I'm looking at the papers for the house sale." "Ethan, what the hell is this?" He paused, caught off guard. I didn't let him speak. I wasn't in the mood for excuses. "I trusted you. I gave you everything. And this is how you repay me, selling my house while I was in a coma." His voice came back soft, almost like a shrug. "It wasn't like that, Mom. I didn't think it was a big deal." I thought, "No," I snapped, my voice louder than I expected. Don't try to explain this away. You sold my life, Ethan, without even telling me. How could you think that wasn't a big deal?" Silence. I could hear him breathing on the other end, but he didn't say a word. And in that pause, something inside me changed. I had spent my whole life giving my time, my love, my energy, always giving, always quiet, but not anymore. "I'm buying the house back," I said, my voice calm but firm. "And you're leaving. You'll pack your things and go. I don't want you here." My voice shook a little, but not from fear. It was something else, Bawa, real, solid, mine. For the first time in years, I felt like I was standing up for myself. I ended the call before he could say anything. My hands were still trembling, but the panic was gone. In its place was something new, a spark. I sat there for a long time, the phone still in my hand, surrounded by the quiet hum of the house. For years, I had been pouring everything into others, especially him, until I had nothing left for myself. But I wasn't going to do that anymore. I looked around again. Same walls, same pictures, same old couch. But the feeling was different now. The sadness that had followed me around like a shadow wasn't as heavy. I wasn't going to apologize for being betrayed. I wasn't going to carry the blame for someone else's selfishness. This time, it was his turn to feel the consequences. The house was still here, and it was still mine. The air felt heavy, like something big was about to happen. I took a deep breath and picked up my phone again. No hesitation this time. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I called the lawyer first. My voice didn't shake. "I need to buy back my house," I said before he could even greet me. The sale was illegal. I was in a coma. I want it reversed. Start the paperwork. I want this done fast. This wasn't just about bricks and paint. This was about taking my life back. My space. My dignity. My voice. Then I called the bank. The money I'd saved, the money I'd worked hard for it, was ready. I wasn't asking anyone for permission. I didn't need approval. Outside, the world kept spinning, cars driving by, people walking, living their normal days. They had no idea what kind of storm was about to hit. But I was ready. I had always been ready. I just hadn't realized it. I stood up from the kitchen table, the sound of my heels clicking on the hardwood floor filling the silence. The house didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a battlefield, and I was going to win. I didn't know how Ethan would react when he found out. And honestly, I didn't care. He had made his choice. Now he would have to live with it. I wasn't going to disappear quietly. Not this time. It felt like it had been forever, but it had only been 2 days. 2 days since those calls, 2 days of gathering strength, 2 days of finding myself again. And now, I was ready to take everything back. I thought about everything, but there was no turning back now. The house was mine again. The call with the lawyer had gone smoothly, and within just 48 hours, all the paperwork was done. It was official. The house was back in my name. No one, not even Ethan, could take that away from me now. But even with everything settled, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread in my chest. I didn't know how Ethan would react. The last time we spoke, his voice had been cold and defensive. Would he come to me full of regret or full of rage? Still, this wasn't just about property anymore. This was about all the years I spent raising him, all the late nights, the sacrifices, the love, and the way he discarded me the second I became inconvenient. He hadn't just taken the house, he had taken me for granted. He acted like I'd never say no, like I'd always be waiting in the background, ready to fix whatever mess he made. I had given him everything, and it was never enough. So I picked up my phone and called him. This time, my hand didn't shake. My voice didn't tremble. I was calm, steady, sure. "Ethan," I said when he picked up, "we need to talk. I've bought the house back. You're not living here anymore." Silence. I could hear his breathing, quick and uneven, like he didn't know what to say. "You sold the house while I was unconscious," I continued. "You took advantage of me. But this is my home, and I'm taking it back. You need to pack your things and go. I'm not your safety net anymore." His voice finally came through, rushed and panicked. "Mom, you don't understand," I thought. "No," I cut in, sharp and clear. "You don't get to explain. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." And with that, I ended the call. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding, wondering what would come next. Would he show up, angry and ready to argue? Would he disappear? But for once, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't worried about pleasing him or second-guessing myself. I was done living for someone else's approval. The house was mine again. And more importantly, I was mine again, even though nothing inside the house had changed. The same walls, the same furniture, the same old pictures on the mantel. Everything felt different. There was a stillness now, a quiet that felt both peaceful and heavy. And for days, Ethan said nothing. No phone calls, no texts, no knock on the door. The silence was loud. At first, I braced myself for a confrontation, thinking he might show up and try to talk me down. But he didn't. It was like he had vanished, leaving behind only the ghost of what we used to be. I found myself walking from room to room, not because I was looking for anything, but because I was getting used to feeling the house again, to feeling me again. I was no longer the mother who gave up everything and asked for nothing. I was no longer the woman who quietly carried the weight of someone else's life. I had chosen myself for once, and even though it hurt, it was the right choice. Then one evening, as I sat on the couch with a glass of wine, there was a knock at the door. My heart jumped. I stood up, unsure what to expect, but when I opened it, it wasn't Ethan. It was a delivery driver holding a small, plain box. "Package for you," he said with a nod. There was no return address, no sender's name, just the box. I closed the door and sat back down, confused, my fingers trembling as I opened it. Inside was a folded letter, just one page. I unfolded it, and my heart caught in my throat as I read, "Mom, I know you're angry, and I understand why. I was wrong. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you'd be better off without the house. But I see now I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please don't shut me out completely. I've left my things outside. If you're still willing to talk, I'll be waiting." Ethan, it was short, but it hit harder than I expected. I sat there, staring at the paper, not knowing what to feel. Was he really sorry? Or was this another way to pull me back into his world and his terms? I didn't know. Maybe I was still angry, but maybe, just maybe, some part of me still cared. I was hurt, plain and simple. Ethan was my son, and no matter what he had done, part of me still cared. I looked out the window and saw his things, his old suitcases and boxes stacked neatly by the curb, like he was silently asking to come back. My heart ached for him, but I couldn't just let him in, not yet. Not until he truly understood what he'd done and how deeply it had hurt. That letter he wrote, it sat on the kitchen counter for days. I couldn't bring myself to open it. Every time I walked past, I felt a wave of emotions crash into me: anger, sadness, confusion, even guilt. I had spent so many years pretending everything was fine, putting my own needs last, just to make sure Ethan had everything, and now, it felt like all of it had been for nothing. Still, I kept avoiding the letter, like I was hoping something would magically fix everything, but nothing changed. The silence in the house was heavy. It wasn't just about the fight or the betrayal anymore. It was about all the years I gave up trying to be the perfect mother, the one who held everything together while slowly losing myself. Then one evening, as the sun was setting and the room was filled with a warm orange light, I finally picked up the letter, but the warmth in the room didn't reach me. Inside, I just felt cold from all those years of sacrificing who I was and realizing it had never been enough. I read his words again. The apology was there, but it didn't feel real. It wasn't about understanding the pain he caused. It was about him needing things to go back to how they were. But I knew they couldn't. I wasn't the same anymore. And honestly, I didn't want to be. The next morning, I made a decision. I carefully folded the letter and tossed it in the trash. His box of belongings still sat there, untouched, but I didn't feel the need to bring him back or forgive him, just to make myself feel better. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. I had spent years fading into the background, always the mother, the helper, the one who kept everyone else happy, but I was done with that. I was ready to be seen again, to take back my life, one small step at a time. In the days that followed, something changed. I felt calm for the first time in years. The house didn't feel sad or lonely anymore. Felt like mine. Not because the furniture changed, but because I started doing little things just for me. I took long walks, had coffee by myself, even bought clothes that made me feel good, not just what was practical. I cooked meals I actually liked, not just what everyone else wanted. I wasn't trying to fill the space Ethan left. I was filling the space inside me that I had ignored for too long. Then one afternoon, while I was planting flowers in the backyard, my own little garden, I heard a knock at the door. My heart jumped, but this time, it wasn't fear. It wasn't panic. It was something else entirely. I didn't feel scared this time, just curious. I opened the front door and found my neighbor, Mrs. Hall, standing there. She was in her late 70s, always cheerful, the kind of woman who smiled with her whole face. We'd talked now and then, over the years, nothing more than polite hellos. But today, she looked serious. In her hand was an envelope. "I found this in my mailbox," she said quietly. "It's addressed to you. Must have been delivered by mistake." My stomach dropped. The envelope was thick, and there was no return address. I could feel the weight of it the moment she handed it to me. "Thank you," I said, my voice a little shaky. She gave me a small nod and headed back home. I stood there in the hallway, just staring at it. I hadn't expected anything like this, not after everything. Slowly, I opened it. My hands were trembling. Inside was one sheet of paper. But it wasn't just a letter, it was a legal notice from the bank. My heart sank. Ethan had gone behind my back again. Only this time, it wasn't some careless mistake. It was planned. He had put a lien on the house. Not a debt from a loan company or some government issue. No, this was from him. Using the same money I had given him to help get the house back, he filed paperwork to claim part of it as his. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. I thought the fighting was over. I thought we were done. But clearly, Ethan wasn't ready to let go. I could feel anger bubbling up inside, but I didn't let it take over. Instead, I felt something else: strength. This wasn't the first time I'd been pushed around, and I was done with it. I wasn't going to play his games anymore. I picked up my phone with steady hands and called my lawyer. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. I knew what had to be done, that Leanne wasn't just some paperwork, it was a challenge. And I was ready to fight back. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the letter. But this time, it didn't scare me. I wasn't the victim. I was the one in charge. The next few days felt tense, like a storm was waiting to hit. I could feel it in the air. I knew Ethan wouldn't go down quietly, but I didn't care. I'd been silent too long. I had finally stood up, and there was no going back. That morning, I didn't wait for a knock on my door. I got in my car and drove straight to his place. His car was in the driveway, so I knew he was home. My pulse raced, but I didn't stop. I was done letting fear hold me back. I knocked on the door. It sounded loud and final, like the end of something. Ethan opened it. His face was tight, like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't invite me in. He didn't even step aside. His arms were crossed, and his jaw was set. "Mom," he said, clearly on edge. "Why did you get the lawyers involved?" I looked him in the eye. "You did this," I said firmly. "You put a lien on my house. You tried to take it from me after everything I've done. I'm done letting you take advantage of me. I fought to get that house back for us, and you tried to steal it again." For a second, I thought he'd argue or apologize, but instead, he looked down at the floor. "You don't understand," he said, softly. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I didn't think you'd be okay with me just taking it. So I thought, but I didn't let him finish. Because I knew now, this wasn't just about the house. This was about all the times I had let myself be pushed aside, and that time was over. I thought maybe this was the only way," he said. "The only way," I repeated, shocked. "You really thought selling our home and putting me in debt was the only way?" My voice cracked with disbelief. This wasn't about doing what was best for me. This was about Ethan getting what he wanted, no matter what it cost me. He didn't say anything. For a moment, I thought he might stay silent forever. But then I saw it, just for a second, flicker of guilt in his eyes, like something inside him finally realized he'd gone too far. I didn't wait for his permission. I stepped past him and walked into the living room. I didn't care about the space or the furniture anymore. This wasn't about walls or property or legal documents. It was about me standing up for myself. For once, I turned to face him. "Ethan," I said, steady and clear, "I'm not here to ask for your forgiveness. I'm asking for my life back, and I'm not leaving until you understand that." He sighed, his shoulders sagging like the weight of it all was finally sinking in. "Mom, I'm sorry," he said, his voice soft. "I didn't know how to handle it. The house, everything. I thought if I just took control, maybe I could fix it. I didn't realize I was breaking it all instead." He was finally telling the truth. I could hear it in his voice, the weariness, the regret, but it didn't change what had happened. Words were easy. Actions were what counted now. I looked at him, not with anger anymore, but exhaustion. "You can't fix something by tearing it apart, Ethan. You wanted control, and you thought I wouldn't stand up for myself, but I have. I've spent my whole life fighting for this family, and I won't let you destroy what I've worked so hard to hold together." His eyes watered. His voice cracked. "I don't want to lose you, Mom. I don't want to lose everything." I nodded, but inside, I knew something had shifted. "You can't lose what you never appreciated," I said gently. "But you can start over. You have to. Just not with me carrying the weight anymore. I'm done with that." I turned and walked out, leaving behind the son who had once meant the world to me. The walk to my car felt strange lighter, even with the pain still sitting heavy in my chest. But this wasn't the end. It was the start of something new. A chapter where I finally chose myself. The days after that were oddly quiet. Ethan didn't call. He didn't show up. And for once, I wasn't waiting for him to. I had already made my move, and I meant it. Still, the silence was loud. It pressed against me, like a wall I hadn't expected. A part of me kept hoping for a message, a knock on the door, some kind of sign that he cared enough to reach back. But the days stretched into a week, and nothing came. Not a word. At first, I told myself he needed time. Maybe he was just processing. But as the days passed, doubt crept in. Maybe he really had walked away. Maybe he had given up on me, on us. I kept myself busy. I started doing little things that reminded me who I was before all this. I took morning walks, tended to the garden, and even joined a yoga class. Small steps, but they helped. They made me feel like I was slowly coming back to life. But no matter how many small victories I had, there was still a hole inside me. Ethan's absence left something empty, not because of the house or the money, but because I had given him everything. I had raised him, loved him with everything I had, and somehow, it still hadn't been enough. That pain lingered. It followed me quietly, like a shadow I couldn't shake. One evening, I sat at the kitchen table, a cup of tea warming my hands. It had been almost a week with no word from him. And that's when it hit. Ma hadn't reached out either. The idea of calling him didn't feel right. I had already said everything I needed to say. And maybe, just maybe, it was his turn now. I needed to say it. I had finally stood up for myself. And for once, it felt like a win. But it wasn't the kind of win you cheer for. It was quiet and heavy, because deep down, it hurt. All the years we spent together, all the love and effort I gave him. It felt like it was all slipping away. This wasn't about the house anymore. It wasn't even about the lies or the betrayal. It was about the life I had worked so hard to build, the family I thought I had. A family that, in the end, wasn't really what I imagined. As I sat alone in the stillness of my home, something shifted inside me. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was the ache of watching my own son walk away without even trying to fix things. But this time, the pain wasn't all there was. Something else had crept in, something that felt a little like freedom. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for him to come back. Not for some apology. Not for him to say, I was wrong. That part of my life was over. Then the phone rang. I froze when I saw Ethan's name on the screen. Without thinking, I answered. Mom, he said softly. His voice sounded unsure, like he was afraid. I just... I wanted to say, I'm sorry. I don't know how to fix it. But I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. And I'm really sorry. I held the phone to my ear and took a deep breath. This was the moment I used to dream about. But instead of relief, all I felt was tired. I had already made up my mind. I didn't need his apology anymore. I didn't need him to try to fix it. I know you're sorry, Ethan, I said quietly. But I've already made peace with it. I can't go back to who I used to be. I've made my choice. I'm moving forward now. I need you to understand that. There was silence on the other end, then a quiet sigh. I understand, Mom. I really do. I just... I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything, I replied. My voice felt steady, calm. Just do better for yourself, for your own life. And I hung up. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I had to explain myself. I didn't feel pulled back into the past, trying to fix what had been broken for so long. The silence after the call didn't feel heavy anymore. It wasn't filled with guilt or anger. It felt peaceful. And that peace, I had earned it. They turned into weeks. As I walked through the house, it felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The silence where Ethan used to be no longer hurt. It had softened, faded, and in its place, I found something I didn't expect, a sense of freedom. The house wasn't just walls and furniture anymore. It stood for everything I had survived. It showed my strength, my ability to get through the hardest moments. I had spent years giving my time, my love, my energy. But now, it was time to give something back to myself. One quiet morning, I sat on the porch with my coffee, watching the sunlight filter through the trees. That's when it hit me. This was never really about the house or the money. This was about me, about finally finding myself again. For so long, I lived for others. I played the role of mom, provider, caretaker. But now, I was living for me. I wasn't waiting for someone to make things right. I wasn't waiting for Ethan to say the perfect words. I had stopped looking for closure because I had already given it to myself. I wasn't broken. I wasn't missing pieces. I was whole, just as I was. I stopped pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I stopped holding in the hurt, and slowly, things began to change, not just on the outside, but deep inside me. I was learning to love who I was without needing approval. I stopped sacrificing my peace just to keep others happy. I had taken my life back. Weeks later, I got a letter from Ethan. He didn't call, didn't knock on the door. Just a short, simple note. "I'm sorry, Mom. I miss you." I didn't rush to respond. There was no urgency anymore. Because deep down, I knew I had already done everything I could, and I was finally okay. I had done everything I could, and now, it was up to him. If he truly wanted to fix our relationship, he'd have to meet me halfway. I wasn't going to chase after him or try to make it happen on my own. So, I gently placed his letter in a drawer with the others, the ones from the past, full of excuses, apologies, and regrets. Those letters didn't hold any power over me anymore. I wasn't waiting around for anyone now. The next day, I decided to do something just for me. I invited a few close friends over for dinner, the kind of people who had always seen me for who I really am. There were no fancy decorations, no perfect place settings, and definitely no stress. Just a simple evening filled with warm food, easy laughter, and honest conversations. These were people who made me feel like I truly mattered. As the night went on, the sound of laughter echoed through the house, and for the first time in a long while, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, real connection, not the kind based on guilt or duty, but one built on love, respect, and mutual care. And in that moment, I realized what I had been missing all those years. I wasn't just someone in the background anymore. I wasn't the quiet mom who faded into the shadows. I was finally the main character in my own story, and that feeling, it was peace. Real, honest, well-earned peace.